My side of the story. Cinderella. Chapter 1. Don't worry, don't hurry. When I was a little girl and my father was still alive, he used to read me animal stories. One of my favorites was the story of the tortoise and the hare. The hare made fun of the tortoise for being slow and challenged him to a race. Very well, said the tortoise, setting off at his usual unhurried pace. The hare bounded ahead. He was so sure he would win that he lay down for a nap. When he awoke, the tortoise was crossing the finish line. So the tortoise won? I asked my father. He nodded. Then he asked, what would you rather be, Ella? A tortoise or a hare? Neither, I said. I want to be a princess or a veterinarian. This made him laugh. Why not both? He said. Years later, I still treasure his words. As for the story of the tortoise and the hare, it was the inspiration for my own personal motto. Don't worry, don't hurry. This was not a popular concept in my house. Ever since my father passed away and my stepmother put me to work, my days have begun pretty much the same way, with my stepsisters screaming for me at the top of their lungs. No matter how promptly I would bring their breakfast trays, it was never fast enough. And that morning was no exception. You are so slow, Drusilla whined as I set down her tray. I smiled sweetly and headed towards the door. She pointed to a pile of clothing on the floor. Wash those things right away, she said. Anastasia was next. The moment she saw me, she started screeching about the ironing, which was in a basket at the foot of her bed. Do it now. Don't 3 days from now, she ordered, sounding like a rusty pump handle. Her voice was sharp enough to shatter crockery. My stepmother was last. She gave me work too, a big bag of mending. See that it gets done quickly, she added. Yes, stepmother, I murmured. I was just starting down the stairway when I heard a blood-curdling scream. It was Anastasia. She hurtled out of her room. A big, ugly mouse under my teacup. It got away before I could kill it. Whew, I thought. My stepsisters hate mice. If they knew how many were living in the house, they'd try to kill them all. And that would be terrible because the mice are my very best friends. Chapter 2. Mice are nice. I've loved animals, perhaps because my father told me so many stories about them. Now that he's gone, they're my only friends. They're much nicer to me than my stepfamily. Bruno the dog licks my face every morning when I come down to the kitchen. The chickens cluck like cheerful old ladies when I greet them. Only Lucifer, my stepmother's cat, keeps his distance. He's as nasty as she is. Still, it was because of Lucifer that I met the mice. One afternoon, I noticed Lucifer was crouching in a corner, batting something around. It was a mouse, and the poor thing was nearly dead. Lucifer, I cried, leave that mouse alone. He ran off hissing, and I carried the mouse up to my garret. When the tiny creature's trembling stopped, I learned something amazing. If I listened carefully, I could pretend and understand what he was saying. Huh? She can understand what he's saying. It was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me. Then and there, my loneliness ended. The mouse, whose name was Jack, chattered away, and because long his little mouse family and friends, Mert, Bert, Susie, Perla, and Luke, joined us. Gus came later. They were fascinating. They knew all kinds of things about the house. It has 632 working mouse holes, the barnyard, the chickens lay more eggs when the roosters tell jokes, and my stepfamily. I found out that Anastasia often hides sweets in her rooms, which the mice eat. Then Anastasia blames Drusilla, and then they have one of their screaming fights. The mice find this very entertaining. Drusilla has an imaginary friend named Drizola, who she sings to. My stepmother has dreams of becoming a great lady and yearns for the day when she and her daughters will shine at court. She cannot understand why they have never been invited to the palace. If only they could meet us, she often says when she is alone. They would know at once that we are superior people. The mice dissolved into peals of squeaky laughter as they told me this. We'll get to the palace faster than they will, said Mert. At least we've got decent manners, said Bert. Their low opinion of my stepfamily should have been comforting, but talk of the palace made me sad. What's wrong, Cinderella? Asked Perla. I know it's foolish, but ever since I was a little girl, I've dreamed of becoming a princess, I sighed. The palace seems as far away as the moon. There was a brief silence. Anything is possible, said Bert. After all, we learned how to talk, said Mert. And to sue, said Perla and Susie. And to live 50 times her body weight, said Jack. None of that would help me, I thought. How could it? Chapter 3. If. It turned out it was Gus who had been under Anastasia's teacup. He told me it was Lucifer who put him on her breakfast tray. Lucifer, I thought. What is your problem? I was dusting the foyer, wondering if some traumatic event in Lucifer's kittenhood was causing him to act out in such an antisocial way, when a knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Open up, Royal Gram! I opened the door to a man carrying a mailbag as big as a washtub. It was filled with envelopes bearing the royal seal. Urgent message from the king, he said, handing me an envelope. What could the king possibly want with our household, I wondered. There was only one way to find out. I went to the music room where my stepsisters were practicing. Anastasia's shrill flute playing and Drusilla's off-key attempts to sing along were not having a good effect on my stepmother. She looked ill. For a moment, I felt sorry for her. Then she saw me. Cindy, she snapped, using the nickname I hate. I've told you never to interrupt us during our music lessons. This royal grand just arrived from the palace, I announced. The palace? She snatched the envelope, ripped it open, and began to read. The king is giving a ball in honor of the prince, and by royal command, every eligible maiden is to attend. Every eligible maiden, she gasped, sinking into a chair. Eligible? Screamed my stepsisters. That's us. I had a palace ball, I thought. I could at least pretend I was a princess. That would be fun. I'm an eligible maiden too, I said. They stared at me. You? At the palace? Cried Drusilla. It does say every eligible maiden is to attend, I pointed out. My stepmother smiled. For a moment, she looked like Lucifer when he was tormenting little Gus. You're right, Cindy, she said slowly. You can go. My stepsister shouted in protest. If you get all your work done. I can do that, I thought. And if you can find something suitable to wear, she added. My stepsisters laughed as if that could never happen. But I knew better. I already had something suitable to wear. I was going to the ball. A few minutes later, I was showing the mice my dearest possession, a pink silk dress that had belonged to my mother. It's perfect for the ball, isn't it? I asked. It is pretty, said Perla, cocking her head. But a touch old-fashioned, said Susie. It has possibilities, said Jack. Maybe with shorter sleeves, a sash, some beads. Makeover, squeaked the mice, jumping up and down. Fun. I said. You have a point. Just as we were trying to figure out where to find a sash or beads, my stepmother called my name. I'll be back soon, I said. How wrong I was. Chapter 4. A new motto. They were all waiting for me, smirking. Anastasia and Drusilla handed me slips of paper. One said, do the following for Anastasia today. Number 1, remove all green buttons from green dress. Number 2, replace all green buttons with blue buttons. Number 3, wash and dry feathers of blue headdress. Number 4, darn holes in blue silk stockings. Number 5, repair beading on green evening purse. Number 6, steam and brush green velvet evening cape. Number 7, sew torn seams in blue evening gloves. Number 8, polish flute. The second one said, do these things for Drusilla before she goes to the ball. And you don't. Number 1, wash yellow dress, purple dress, and red dress. Number 2, iron yellow dress, purple dress, and red dress. Number 3, polish orange shoes, yellow shoes, pink shoes, green shoes, white shoes, gray shoes, brown shoes, and black shoes. Number 4, sew purple ribbons on green headdress. Number 5, repair torn hem on evening cape. Number 6, go fly a kite. Ha ha. It would take me days to do all these tasks, and they knew it. When you've finished helping Anastasia and Drusilla, said my stepmother, you can do a few last-minute chores for me. My heart sank right down to my feet. I tried not to cry. Wax the banisters, she began, scrub the fire screen, clean the andirons, give Lucifer a bath, polish the soup tureen and the fish knives. She smiled cruelly. If you get everything done, she said, and if you dress suitably, you can come to the ball. By mid-afternoon, I was beginning to wonder if "Don't worry, don't hurry" was truly the best motto for me. I had been working for hours, but many tasks, polishing Drusilla's big stinky shoes and bathing my mom's large nasty cat still lay ahead. I couldn't possibly finish in time if I kept going so slowly, so I came to a decision. I changed my motto. It became, those who wish to complete a large amount of tasks in a short period of time must accelerate the pace of their movements. In other words, I decided to hurry up. Lucifer, yowling like a demon in torment, got his bath. I polished the andirons and the soup tureen. By nightfall, I was up to the fish knives. As I was polishing the last one, I heard the sound of horses' hooves. The carriage had arrived to take us to the ball. But how could I go? I wondered hopelessly. My dress wasn't ready. Anastasia and Drusilla clattered downstairs in their finery, followed by my stepmother. Why, Cindy, she observed, you haven't finished your chores yet. You made sure of that, I thought. But all I said was, I'm not going to the ball. I'm going to my room. I ran upstairs in tears. Surprise! Squeaked the mice. I blinked in amazement. There on my bed lay an elegant pink gown, complete with a sash, new, extremely fashionable sleeves, and beautiful beadwork. We sewed it for you, cried Priscilla, Susie, Gus, and Jack. Do you like it? It's beautiful, I said. Shall I put it on? Yes, yes, they squeaked. The coach is waiting, hurry. I took their advice, and moments later I was downstairs, facing my stepfamily. I found something to wear, I said breathlessly. Is there room for me on the coach? Their answers came quickly, and it made me see that I had misjudged my stepsisters. I knew they were lazy, noisy, sloppy, and tone deaf, but I had always believed that they weren't all bad. I was so wrong. Screaming with rage, Anastasia accused me of stealing her sash. Drusilla chimed in, claiming I had taken her beads. Then they tore my gown to shreds. I begged my stepmother to stop them, but she did nothing until my dress was in tatters. Then she said, Come, girls, we don't want to be late. And they all left. Chapter 5. Vinchikawara. You can't go to the ball looking like that. You're a mess. I was out in the garden crying, and I just wanted to be alone. Go away, I thought, whoever you are. Now, where's my magic wand? Huh? That question definitely got my attention. I looked up. A plump woman in a blue cape was standing over me, looking puzzled. A wand appeared in the air, and she grabbed it. Gotcha, she cried. It began to twinkle. I sat up. How did you do that? I asked. Easiest fairy godmother trick in the book, she said. You mean you're a fairy godmother? I said in disbelief. Honey, she said, I'm your fairy godmother. I'm Dorabella, vice president of regional makeovers, and I've come here to help you. Makeover, makeover, squeaked the mice, led by Gus and Jack. Fun! Dorabella checked her big diamond-studded wristwatch. We'd better hurry, she said. It's late. She rolled up her sleeves, pointed her wand at a big pumpkin, and began to chant. On her last words, which sounded something like bippity boppity boo, the pumpkin turned into a big shiny coach. This made the mice squeak so hard that they bounced. I'll bet you'd like to go to the palace, said Dorabella, and they bounced even higher. Thought so, she said, and then things began to change very fast. Chanting and waving her wand, she turned 4 of the mice into coach horses, the farmyard horse into a coachman, and Bruno the dog into a footman, complete with a powdered wig and buckled shoes. I began to feel giddy. Dorabella glanced at her watch. Time flies when you're having fun. Remember that, she said. I'll try, I replied. Do or don't do. There is no try, she said sternly. What does that mean? I wondered, but because I could ask her, she was chanting again and waving her wand at me, so I didn't get a chance to ask her. I couldn't believe what happened next. My hair styled itself into an intricate French twist. My rags became a shimmering ball gown with a skirt as big as a chicken coop, and a pair of glass slippers appeared on my feet. Amazing! But Dorabella was frowning at my feet. Drat, she murmured. Just look at your feet. There's no time for a pedicure. I didn't care. I didn't care if my toes didn't look pretty. As far as I was concerned, the makeover was perfect. Fairy godmother, I cried. How can I ever thank you? Just keep track of the time, honey, she said, tapping her watch. The makeover ends at midnight. Now jump onto the coach and go have yourself a ball. Now that's what I call a do. She is going to have a ball. Style in threads. Genuine 100% glass slippers. Pretty Cinderella. Chapter 6. Is it midnight already? Excuse me, may I have this dance? I whirled around in surprise. An extremely handsome young man wearing a Save the Whales pin on his label was smiling at me. Why, of course, I said. I had been admiring the many paintings of dogs, horses, chickens, and guinea pigs that adorned the walls. As he led me onto the dance floor, he asked, You like animals? I love them, I said. I've never seen such fine portraits of chickens before. His face lit up. I'm going to study chickens someday, he said, if I ever get to veterinary school college. You want to be a vet? I asked. I do too. He looked deep into my eyes. I have a hunch we're the only 2 people here who share that dream. I'm lucky I found you. My heart thumped. I feel the same way, I said. Still talking, we waltzed into the garden. I told him about understanding mice. He told me about whispering to horses. We discovered that we both wanted to make the world a better place for animals. We were on a little bridge, waltzing to the music of the frogs when he kissed me. I've never been so happy, I thought. And then the palace clock began to chime. It was almost midnight. The spell was about to end. Oh no, I cried and began to turn away. Stop, the handsome stranger called after me. But how could I? When the clock finished striking, I would be in rags sitting on a pumpkin. I ran through the ballroom, ignoring the stares of the guests, and fled from the palace. My coach and horses were waiting at the foot of the staircase. Thank goodness, I gasped, scrambling down the stairs so hastily that I lost one of my slippers. I hesitated. The clock struck again. Hurry, Cinderella, called the footman. I'm growing a tail. I left the slipper, flung myself into the coach, and we were off. The next morning, all I could think about was the handsome stranger. He's the man of my dreams, I told the chickens as I threw corn to them. Even if I never see him again, I'll never, ever forget him. Dorabella's spell had ended at midnight, just as she had warned. The coachman turned back into a horse. The footman turned back into Bruno, and the horses into mice. My gown was gone forever. But I still have one glass slipper, I told the chickens, and I'll treasure it always. They clucked as if they understood. Chapter 7. Mice Are Nice, Part 2. The next morning, I was surprised to find my entire step family in Drizilla's room. They were so agitated they could hardly notice when I came in with the breakfast trays. Get up, my stepmother was urging Drizella. The Grand Duke will be here any minute. He's scouring the kingdom. Drizilla's response was a bone-cracking yawn. For what? She asked sleepily. For a girl who dropped a glass slipper when she left the palace, reported Anastasia. The prince is madly in love with her. So get out of bed and wash your feet, shouted my stepmother. If you or Anastasia can fit into the slipper, the prince will marry you. I dropped the breakfast trays. The handsome stranger with the Save the Whales pin, the man of my dreams, was the prince, and he wanted to marry me. My stepmother told me to clean up the mess, but I was so giddy with happiness that I ignored her. Instead, I twirled out of the room, humming a waltz. It was a bad mistake. I was in my room, telling the mice the wonderful news about the prince, when I recognized the heavy tread of my stepmother on the stairs. An instant later, she stood in the doorway of my little room. So, you like waltzes, do you? I thought I saw you at the ball, she hissed, drawing a big brass key out of her reticule. You were there, monopolizing the prince, keeping him from my daughters. I was there, I admitted, but I didn't know he. Enough! I won't have you endangering the future of my girls. You're staying up here. She slammed the door and locked me in. I can't believe she did that, squeaked Gus, emerging from under my pillow. I sat down on the bed next to him. Believe it, said Jack. Gus jumped onto my lap. Don't worry, Cinderella. We'll help you, he said. We'll get the key. It's very sweet of you to offer, I said, but that key is twice your size. It's much too heavy for you. We're stronger than we look, said Jack as they left. The next few minutes were long ones. I heard a carriage arrive and knew it must be the Grand Duke. I worried that Lucifer would harm Jack and Gus. I wondered where my fairy godmother was and if she handled escapes as well as makeovers. Then I heard a thunk on the stairs. I ran to the keyhole. Jack and Gus were there with the key. How did you do that? I cried after I had finally unlocked the door. Mice can carry 50 times their weight, remember? Said Jack. Chapter 8. No shoehorn required. I raced downstairs. A footman carrying my glass slipper on a big velvet pillow stood at the door as the Grand Duke made his farewells. Please, I cried, may I try on the slipper? To my relief, the Duke was willing. Unfortunately, my stepmother was not. When the footman came towards me with the slipper, she stuck out her walking stick and tripped him. The slipper flew into the air and hit the floor. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. She could barely suppress a smile. Anastasia and Drizella giggled. The Grand Duke nearly wept. This is terrible. The king will be furious and the prince will be so disappointed. I drew the other glass slipper out of my apron pocket. Are you sure? I asked, handing the slipper to him. It fit me perfectly, of course. The Grand Duke and I smiled at each other. It was a happy moment for both of us. You will have to do your own washing and ironing now, I told my stepfamily. I'm going to be busy with other things. Prince and I opened up our own practice as soon as we finished veterinary school. We're busy, but we love it. The mice and the horse and Bruno and the chickens live with us now, along with a host of other animals, and they're all very healthy. The guinea pigs have even agreed to be guinea pigs for my newest specialty, animal behavior modification. I'm hoping to get Lucifer in for a treatment. The end. And that's the Cinderella story. Bye bye.